Okay, so pretty excited to talk with you on a stage instead of the texting all the time, what's up, right? As an investor, you're the man. So yeah, officially you're the president and director of the Bukalapak. So can you start, elaborating your background and how you came across to get into the Bukalapak?
Yeah. For many who doesn't know, Ebihara-san is actually our first investor. So you probably know about the process of Buka more than me, right, in the beginning. So how I came about to Buka was rather peculiar. As a background, I'm actually a banker, a corporate finance. So when I graduated from Sydney University, I actually became a lecturer. And I remember at that time...
University, I mean, right?
Sorry?
In a university.
At Sydney University. So I did my PhD, and then,
okay.
Typical after that, you become a lecturer.
Yeah.
I was 24 years old, and the saying was, those who can't do, teach. So I thought, I don't want to be labeled to be the guy who can't do and just teach, all right? So I started applying and worked for investment bank for a few years. Literally got burned out after 8 years. Decided to retire to an asset management, a slightly more relaxing, a more stable kind of job. I was happily doing my job in asset management when the shareholder of Buka approached me. At that time, I thought the offer was quite interesting because all I had to do was focus on corporate finance and fundraising. Something that I knew pretty well.
At that time, they already have an IPO plan.
No, that was 2018. It was a very different, I guess, as the structure of the company was quite different, right? I think everybody at that time, every tech company will always talk about IPO, but even the regulation wasn't there. And I recall the first, between 2018, 2019, 2020, all those 3 years, the focus of the company was to be IPO ready.
Okay.
And a big part, obviously, was our CFO, Natalie Firmansha, from Novartis. We recruit her from Novartis. So a lot of the work at that time was, what we did was focusing on getting the proper audit done, proper SOP, proper reporting system. And it was a tedious amount of work. It took us 2-3 years. And then the timing happens and we did the IPO,
When you decided to join the Bukalapak, did you have a kind of the conviction that today is today?
Well, at that time, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, I'll be honest with you. I remember the first day I walked in and on the Monday weekly meeting, right? Okay. Literally the first day. Yeah. There was a private round triggered.
Okay.
And there was Zaki and all that sitting there, right? And I was like, okay, so the fundraising round is triggered. Who has access to the VDR, virtual data room? And everyone was like, I kind of sense, oh, am I in trouble now? And I said, okay, who is the corporate finance team? The whole room looked at me. Apparently there was none. Right? So literally we kind of have to build it from scratch, a lot of the foundation and a lot of the infrastructure for that. And while IPO has always been something talked about, I'll be honest with you, I had my doubt. All I knew was that whether this company went public or not, the best practice is bring it to be IPO ready in terms of your reporting, in terms of the governance, on everything, right? So that's what we focus on, because at the end of the day, it's very hard to say, oh, I want to do IPO this year. I personally, coming from a public market background, I think it's impossible to tell the future. Because when it comes to IPO, just be ready. When the timing is right, just whack it, right? There's no best plan, perfect timing. There's none. Just be ready and hit it.
Window doesn't open so wide. So
it doesn't.
You can't lose the momentum, right?
Yeah. I mean, you see in our case, it was literally sheer luck in terms of timing. A little bit delayed would have been a very different story.
And did you feel that the window is open now when you went to public?
Depends on which industry. Obviously, the IPO market is always open, right? It's just depending on which industry is hot at the moment.
But you were the very first, tech, the natural, tech unicorn company went to IPO.
In Indonesia,
Not
yeah.
any, the emerging board, etc., but the main board. So how did you figure out that this is the moment?
There was no figuring out. So at that time, I remember it was April 2021. We sat together. Prior to that, for like few months, literally, there was a SPAC time. You remember SPAC?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forgot by now, right? During that time, I'll get a call from 3 SPAC every week, I'll be honest with you, right? And so the discussion was, are we going to US? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? So we kind of sat down and says, look, let's be pragmatic.
Yeah.
What do we know? We know the market is relatively okay. At that time, it wasn't exactly hot yet in April, but it was heading in the right directions. It's not going to last forever. Anything that goes down will come down eventually at one point or the other, or the sentiment would change or be softer, right? What is the fastest path for us to do it? Indonesia. So, what we did was literally the whole team, like the whole company, the focus was get the IPO done. It was not a perfect IPO. If I have to go back, flash back a lot of the decision we did, some of the steps that we took, it was not done in a perfect situation, in a perfect solution, but it was the best path to get it out the door ASAP. Because, again, you never know, right? Market sentiment, it could last for a year, it could last for 6 months, it could last for a month, it could last for 5 years. But what we know is, if the moment is right, seize it, pull it. Yeah.
I see. So I'd like to ask about the the debut date. It was 6th of August, 2 years back, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So I was watching your bell ringing. So what was your feeling at that? And then what was the kind of the backstage story?
Yeah.
What really happened?
I don't want to. It's not as cliche as what a lot of people think. At least for me. Again, I mean, I've never taken a company to IPO as a management, but obviously I had a lot of participation in IPO when I was working for investment bank. On the day it happens, I knew very well that the battle was only about to start.
Battle.
The battle was only about to start.
Between whom to whom?
Between management are just going into war.
Okay.
Why? I have been involved in a sizable IPO in the past, right? Things with mega size of issuance. It was never going to be easy. We know that at that time, the attention was massive. We know at that time that the expectation was high. We know at that time there's $1.5 billion floating on the market. It's impossible to manage. Right?
I see.
So coming from a public background, I knew that I didn't actually celebrate.
So it sounds like your concern is much bigger than the usual.
It's a new chapter, and the journey was about to start, and it's going to be a very different journey.
So it's not like a celebrating with the champagne and hey, like that?
We didn't actually have I think they have the celebrating dinner usually, like deal closing dinner.
Yeah.
We didn't even have that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Actually, that was because it's a very beginning of, in the middle of the COVID period.
It was in the middle of the period. Even post that we didn't. But I think it was a lot of people in the company, especially in my team, we knew that this is a new chapter and the battle has just begun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I see. So a little bit change the subject, right? So what is your focus so far about the broad strategy of the corporate? Like, so far Mitra business is very famous, or you've done some opening in the Filipino market, or the M&A. So what's your focus so far?
Yeah, so I think the difference is we kind of admit we are not very good in everything.
Yeah.
We can't be the best in everything. So I think if I draw a very simple line and in our broad strategy was to kind of look into all the parts that we are doing and says, which one we actually good at?
Yeah.
Which one we have a moat? Which one we actually have a supply capability better than the others?
Yeah.
It's not going to be all 1,000 category or whatever number of category there is. To us, we admit that we can't be good in every single category.
Yeah.
So we kind of selected a handful of category and just try to be awesome at it.
What are
So
those?
one is Mitra,
Okay.
gaming, right? Some of the FMCG and supplying for the eatery, right? So rather than trying to do like all different category, we literally like streamlined and looked at some of the parts that we're good at, literally almost kind of de-emphasize majority of the other category, just let it status quo, but be really good in what you select or choose to be good at. And actually, if you looked at the general marketplace, I call it general marketplace and specialty verticals. Let's call it that way, right? Specialty verticals like Mitra, specialty vertical for the mom and pop kiosk. Gaming, we have a marketplace for gaming currency, gaming item, all that, and so on.
Right.
If I looked at the split today between the general marketplace versus the specialty vertical, including Mitra, the general marketplace is like 10% of our business.
Okay, understood.
90% is already that focused business that, except for Mitra Bukalapak, doesn't even have a Bukalapak brand on it.
Are you going to do the M&A much more?
Okay, so we have been,
Yeah.
but
How many did you do?
oh, quite a lot.
Okay, more
But
than
a
10?
lot of them are pretty small.
Okay.
You see, a lot of the M&A we did was coming back again to our strategy saying, where are our focus? These are our focus. Okay, what are we going to do with this? What are the plan to build in-house? And then we went out and says, look, this is how much it costs if we build in-house. Is there a company available
Yeah.
for the whole or parts? A lot of them are parts of almost product acceleration. So we acquire based on product acceleration and compare that with in-house build-up costs, right? If we build it from zero.
I see.
Now, as a result of that, a lot of them are like, $1 to $10 million.
Because this is the most interesting, I mean, the interested by the audience as a startup event, what are you looking for?
Again, for us is
As an
starting.
M&A target, I mean.
And at the M&A, we always start with what are the business focus we have? What are we building? And then we compare that with,
Is there any specific theme you're looking for now?
I mean, we're gaming, obviously is one,
Gaming.
Mitra obviously is
Okay.
one. Those are the two key parts that we do,
Good
right?
news for the gaming startups.
We don't develop games, by the way.
Right.
So
The other one?
we kind of do the marketplace for game currency and all that.
Marketplace,
Yeah. I think to be able to realize, for example, let me take the gaming as an example, right?
Okay.
A lot of people when I say gaming, the first reaction is, oh, are you the game developer and publisher? It's like, no. We don't want to battle there. There's a lot of big player there. But what we realized was Indonesian, for example, has a very low credit card penetration, has a very low digital financial, or even financial inclusion. So a lot of the gamers in Indonesia, when they want to top up the gems, they actually have cash.
Yeah.
They don't have credit card. They can't do it in apps. And we have 5 million Mitra, mom and pop kiosks connected to us. So the way we roll out gaming, the reason why we did very well is because we can tap into the gamers who wants to pay cash, because you go to your mom and pop shop, which is warung for those people here, just like you top up your phone credits, just like you pay your electricity token. You just say, I want 50,000 rupiah of Mobile Legends, and you pay cash. Now that created very strong moat for us, where the other player doesn't have, because they don't have the Mitra network, right? So we kind of build it on specialty vertical, where we looked at it and says, can we be a champion of it? Do we have the moat? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the capability to be literally number one without having to do the subsidy and burn?
Okay, understood. Okay, so next question is about the profitability. So, I believe not only you, but almost all of the startups now focus on the bottom line, the top line. So I'd like to share your experience and the view about how to maintain the growth, but at the same time you have to focus on to be the profitable. So I think it's good learning for all of the startup on the stage. So what do you think?
Well, when you say the top line, my top line is revenue.
Yes, not the GMV, but the revenue. Okay. You're laughing about the GMV.
Very often, an analyst will come up to me and goes, what's your GMV this quarter? I was like, give me 5 minutes, I have to check. I don't even remember, right? But if you ask me what's my revenue, EBITDA month on month, I knew inside out.
And GMV period is over. It's a dinosaur.
Well, it's not that. Let me tell you, especially for our case, right? Growing GMV, I think is valid if it's profitable GMV. Now, the problem is, I always said, not all GMV are created equal.
Okay, healthy GMV.
Not just healthy. Because, let's say, topping up phone credits in Mitra. It has huge GMV.
Yeah.
But the take rate is 1%.
Take that doesn't matter.
Right?
Take it.
Yeah. gaming product, for example, has a take rate of more than 5%.
Yep.
Now, does it mean if I grow $1,000 worth of GMV in phone credits should be equal weighting to growing $1,000 of a gaming GMV? It's not, because one of them is a lot more profitable than the other. Right? So as a holistic of the GMV, as a total itself, to me it's a bit irrelevant. Because the moment I tell my team that your focus is growing GMV, you know, God is fair, right? Things that has high volume, i.e. high GMV, have low take rate or low margin. And it applies everywhere, every business. Things that has high volume, low margin. Things that has high margin, unfortunately, typically has a lower volume. But the moment you mandate your team to say the growth is based on GMV, naturally people go for the easiest path. Go for the low take rate product that has the massive amount of GMV. It's not exactly the most profitable for the company, right? But all that are captured in revenue. Now, if the question is, you need to grow the revenue to grow the EBITDA, of course, because it goes straight down, right? So the focus is growing the revenue, and the revenue that actually translates into a positive EBITDA and net income.
Okay. Choose the higher take rate.
You have to balance it.
Balance it.
Yeah, because you know, you always, as a business, you want to have the highest GMV with the highest take rate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's very, very hard to find, right? At the end of the day, you just look at the business as to whether how profitable it is versus the capacity you have to drop in versus a lot of the support you have to drop in. If it's positive, there's no harm in it, right? It doesn't mean that you also forsake the low take rate product. For example, we have a low take rate product in remittance and stuff, but it's profitable. So why not?
Okay.
But it comes down to the point that if you look at the GMV, you are overestimating or not getting the right picture of the growth.
Okay.
But if you look at revenue, then that captured based on the take rate, right? So even if it has high GMV and low take rate, the impact on revenue is smaller. But if it's positive to your EBITDA, yeah, go for it.
So you have to have the very clear, crisp understanding about the,
Of course.
the
Of course.
unit economics.
Of
and
course.
Then, you have to balance it.
Of course.
Not to choose the only one, but you have to balance.
Yep.
That's the take. Okay, great. I see. So next question is about the founders trade skill set. I don't say public company, but the later stage company, to manage the later stage company. Maybe the skill set is a little bit different from the very early stage to build a business phase. Right? So from your vision, what do you recommend to have in advance for the C-suites? What kind of the skill set do you have to be the later stage company to manage the 1,000 people and then to manage the cash flow, which is not the tens of millions, but the hundreds of millions.
Realize what you're good at and realize what you're not good at. Right? The reason is this, at least, again, my experience, right? A lot of people who founded a company, they are very creative.
Yeah.
They're very innovative. Creative, innovative people, if you put them to sit on a budget meeting for 1 hour every day, they'll get bored and they go crazy, right? If you ask people that think big picture into details of reconciliation of the accounting items, they'll go crazy.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So there's no perfect human being as a leader, but you realize that I'm good at this particular part.
Okay.
What am I not good at? For those areas you're not very good at, just admit it and hire somebody who's good at it. Even in my role, I do, right? Like there are area, even within area that I grew up in, which is corporate finance, not everything I'm good at. So then you hire a person who are good at it to complement to what your skill set. I think the worst part would happen if somebody, like a leader, thinks that he or she are good in everything.
So it sounds you're indirectly saying that most of the early stage, the founder is not good at the finance and the strategy.
Oh, not necessarily.
Not like that?
Some are. You see, some of the founders, because it's a group of co-founders, sometimes you get lucky and you got one founder's good in innovation and creativity, another founder's good in finance recording, right? It could happen, right? But typically you would not have one group that good in everything, like human resource, for example, right? Media relation, government relation. There's so many part of it. Once you become a bigger company, you like it or not, you have to face every single part of this aspect. And typically, you are not going to have the first team being the perfect team. But that is also, I think, the the pain of being a founder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then maybe that changed the question. If you, let's say you are the, let's say the Series B company, and then you have to hire the CFO, and then what do you looking for? What kind of
That's what I was
character
getting
they're
to,
looking for?
right? That's the pain, and I can sympathize with a lot of the founders. When you're Series A, Series B, you're not gonna get the best. Sometimes, very often, you're not gonna
Yeah.
get the best. You lure someone to join your company out of personal relationship, out of trust. Now, at one stage, the company becomes successful and grow to a stage. Unfortunately, your first team, not all of them are suitable for your next stage.
Yeah.
That is the hardest moment of any leaders. To start realizing that somebody that you considered family and friends sometimes, you have to part ways.
Okay.
That is the biggest challenge for any transitioning company into the next level. And it's a very personal thing.
You mean that you better to hire the professional,
Yeah, because when you're smaller, you're not going to be able to hire the best professional.
Yeah.
Or the scope is different. Now, this person joined you and put a trust in you as the number one leader of the company. The company either went public or went bigger and what's not, you need a stronger talent. But this person is stuck with you in the first 5 years.
Yeah, but how do you figure out this is the right person or not?
Well, I think every stage is different,
Yeah.
right? You kind of map out first what exactly you need.
Let's say the Series B company who has to raise let's say the next round is going to be the 50 maybe. You have to raise
Let me give illustration of a CFO role, for example,
yeah.
right? This is one of the biggest misconceptions about the CFO role. Most people think that the best corporate finance and the best bankers can become the best CFO. It's not true.
Oh, okay.
It's not true. CFO number one job is internal accounting and finance, taxation, reporting, reconciliation. Now your bankers would make the worst. People like me would make the worst CFO in the world. I tell you that, all right? Because it's about matching the COA, going to which item and have the cross-checking, checking the checkers and all this shebang. Before you got a CFO to do a fundraising, which I don't think should be the role of CFO, by the way, get a CFO to fix your book first.
Okay. Much more internal.
Internal
math
accounting,
is much
data,
more-
make sure that's ready first.
Okay.
And then you get somebody who can talk and pitch and present and stuff. That is a very different skill set. Most CFO who are very good with internal accounting makes the worst fundraising guy. Those are the best for fundraising lead, make the worst internal accounting person. Unfortunately, it's just two very different characteristics.
Okay, so do you think maybe a different person should be
We do.
managed?
We do.
Okay.
From since I joined, yeah.
It's rare to be the only one person can handle the internal lead and fundraising.
Very rarely, very rarely. Usually if you're going for that setup, the top person, let's say you pick that top person being the one that do the fundraising or the internal accounting, whatever it is, you need a very strong number two that complement the other side. So usually not one person can do both. The internal characteristic of the individual are very, very different.
Understood. Thank you. So I think the next question is going to be the last in terms of time. So, talking about the external, market circumstances, it's not necessarily good, especially for the this war thing so happens. So, what is your provision about the external market circumstances, especially for the hyper growth companies like you, instead of not only you but the GoTo, Grab, etc. Or even the public company in U.S. Who went to the IPO for the Corona period. So, what do you see the recovery of their stock price? I know you're not the God, so you can't predict, right? Like a crystal ball, right? But how and what kind of path to redemption is going to happen? So, what are your provisions?
Yeah, it's not the first time. I mean, maybe it means I'm a bit older or I'm too old, but I've gone through the tech bubble, 2001. I went through 2008 crisis. I went through the Greece debt, if anybody still remember, right? At every single cycle, There's always an industry that wins, there's an industry that loses. And unfortunately, my personal view when it comes to stock market is 80% of that are external factors you can't control. Right? The fact that Jerome Powell is going to raise the interest rate further or keep it higher, we as individuals has no control over it. As a management, the only thing you can do is focus inwards. Make sure you, well, when the attention to your company as a public company is lower, is the best time that you fix a lot of things and refocus, right? Because people are not going to put every single bolt and nudges on everything that you do.
Yeah.
If anything, I think this is the time that look back into the business, what has been working, what's not been working. If it doesn't work, take the hard decision. If it's working, deploy more capacity to boost into it. Refocus your business. Don't need to kind of go around and be media darling, for example, right? Just go internal, focus operation. Hopefully, and tides always turn, right? Sentiment always turn. I mean, I think after the tech bubble, everybody says tech is dead. But obviously 2 years ago, things were different again for a decade before that. Commodity boom in 2008 to 2014, and then suddenly it was like commodity is dead, coal is dead, and then now today you see those are the champion, right? So it's always cyclical. Now, what you want to make sure is that when the next cycle comes, very similar to doing private to public, right? When the next cycle comes, your fundamental are in the right position, you already got the right business model, you are right at the optimal business model, then you can ride into that positive sentiment.
Do you agree that only the profitable company can survive?
How long? In infinite, always.
In a very short time. Right? Always, yes.
In infinite, always, right?
Let's say let's say 12 months.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Okay, so it depends on the stage of the company, right? You see, particularly in tech, there's one accounting methods that a lot of people forgot. Most tech company doesn't have a lot of capex. So whatever you spend, it goes straight into OPEX and go into net income.
Okay.
And as if you're doing a red as a result, which you are doing a red, right? But even if you think about it, you're building a manufacturing plant. You actually have a whole bunch of capex into it, but it got depreciated away.
Yeah.
Have that been booked as an expense, most manufacturing plant in the first year or two, whatever, would actually have a very red net income.
So you're saying that the cash flow does matter compared with the PL?
There's always a period, I mean, every business, unless you're very lucky, and I haven't thought of one, that from day one you can be cash flow positive, profitable from day one. If you know one, let me know. I'm happy to roll out that business, right? There's always an investment period, right? And if it's done on the right reason, I think it's okay. If it's done on irrational reason, without path to be profitable, then that's another problem.
My question is a public market really agree on that kind of thesis? I mean, the J-curve is okay.
Oh, depends on when.
Okay.
3 years ago, they agreed to it.
But now,
it's
right?
very different. So, so now it's a lot more stringent about it, right? So the point about public market, though, one thing you have to remember is the investor change their thesis, their stance, all that very quickly because they can trade every second of the day when the market's open. Now, if you follow the public market sentiment as a management, you'll go crazy and you actually hurt your company.
Okay.
So the best thing you can do is have your proper strategic plan, stuck with it if you're confident in your plan. And stock price is important, yes, but it's secondary.
All right.
After business fundamental.
Great. Good learning. Okay, so time's up. So we have a bunch of the learning and takes from you. Thank you very much. All right, raise your hand. Thank you.